ready to unlock some serious potential. We're diving deep today into the world of Alfred Adler
Oh, Adler.
and his individual psychology, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be this fascinating approach to understanding ourselves, and kind of mastering this whole art of living thing. Have you ever had those aha moments that make you see yourself in a completely different light?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Get ready for a bunch of those because that's what today is all about.
I love that. And Adler is so practical and insightful, I find. He gives us a really good framework for understanding human psychology.
So unpack that for me a little bit. When we hear psychology, right, a lot of us immediately jump to Freud.
Right.
But Adler actually broke away from that whole Freudian psychoanalysis thing.
He did.
To develop his own individual psychology.
Yeah.
So what sets him apart, in your view?
I think what's really fascinating about Adler is that he had a much more holistic view of the individual. And so imagine this. He saw each person as being driven by a unique style of life, almost like a blueprint. And that blueprint, it's shaped by early childhood experiences.
Interesting.
And this really deep-seated striving for superiority, which we can unpack a little bit later.
Okay, so when I hear style of life,
Right,
I'm picturing, like, someone with a monocle on,
right.
sipping brandy. You're like, darling, it's all about the style.
It's all about the style. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm sensing that Adler's concept is a little bit deeper than that.
A little deeper than the brandy snifter, perhaps.
Yeah.
But think about it as this. It's your unique pattern of behaviors, your thoughts, your feelings, your go-to approach, really, for life's challenges. And what's so interesting is it starts forming so early on.
So you're saying, like, my childhood, as much as I don't want to admit it, is still with me.
Yes.
In the form of my style of life.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier this striving for superiority.
Yes.
Which sounds kind of intense when you say it out loud. What does that actually mean?
I know. It sounds like we all just want to be like, top dog. But Adler actually believed that it's this universal human desire, right?
Yeah.
It's a desire for mastery, for competence. Ultimately, it's about finding our place in the world.
So it's not necessarily about dominating others.
No.
It's more about just, like, being the best version of ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that drive to improve, to overcome challenges, like, that's wired into us as humans.
Which makes me think about, then, the inferiority complex.
Yes.
Which I think we've all experienced at some point or another, right?
Totally.
And Adler actually coined that term, didn't he?
He did.
What was he getting at with that?
So think about it. As children, we are totally dependent.
Right.
We're constantly learning. And often we're comparing ourselves to others.
Right. We're always comparing ourselves.
So it's completely natural to feel inferior sometimes.
Totally. But I'm sensing here that not all feelings of inferiority are necessarily bad.
Absolutely not. In fact, Adler saw it as actually a motivator for growth. So that feeling of, I want to be better, I want to improve, that pushes us to learn, to adapt, and to overcome those limitations.
Totally. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
But when does it become a problem? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, where's the line between that healthy striving and then just being full-blown inferior?
Totally, yeah. So it becomes a problem when those feelings are exaggerated or we develop what we call unhealthy coping mechanisms. And so that's where you might see a superiority complex emerge.
Okay.
So we're puffing ourselves up.
Right.
To mask those deeper insecurities.
So someone's who's, like, bragging all the time.
Yes.
They're actually just, like, overcompensating.
Exactly. They're overcompensating.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So we talked about this striving for superiority.
Yes.
And how that ties into our childhood experiences, which then develops our style of life.
Yes.
Can you give me an example maybe of how that actually shows up?
Totally. So Adler, he found birth order really significant.
Interesting.
So, for example, firstborn children, they often experience being dethroned when a sibling arrives.
Oh, I relate to this so much.
Oh, do you?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And, like, all of a sudden, there's this new baby.
Exactly.
Get all the attention.
All the attention. And so that experience can shape a style of life that can be characterized by a need for control.
Right.
Maybe a fear of change, even a tendency to overachieve. You're trying to reclaim that top spot.
Right. Always trying to prove yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. So it all goes back to that early experience.
It does.
And then how we react to it. What about, like, The youngest children.
Yeah, so the young
Adler's
what?
trying to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Exactly. They might develop a style of life that's a little more attention-seeking.
Right.
Maybe they need to be different, rebellious to get that attention.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh, I bet people listening are, like, reflecting on their own childhoods right now.
Right.
But it's not all birth order, right?
No, not at all.
There's a whole bunch of other stuff that kind of goes into this.
It can be any early experience, right?
Right.
It can be a physical challenge, maybe being pampered or neglected, even facing prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
These become part of the fabric of our style of life.
Okay. I'm starting to get a little concerned because
Yeah.
this is starting to sound a tad deterministic.
Right.
Like we're just prisoners of our past.
Right.
So is there hope
Oh, absolutely.
to change our style of life once it's set?
Totally. And that's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
Because Adler's individual psychology, it offers incredible hope.
Okay. So you're saying, like, I can do a complete style makeover,
You could say that.
trade in my old people-pleaser model for the new go-getter edition.
Absolutely. It's about understanding those patterns that aren't serving us well anymore.
Okay.
And then choosing to rewrite those scripts.
I like that, rewriting the scripts.
Yeah.
But before we get to that makeover montage, I want to talk about something else that I know Adler had really fascinating insight on, and that's dreams.
Oh, yes, dreams.
I've always been so fascinated by dreams.
Yes.
So tell me, did Adler think that they were all about repressed desires,
Uh-huh.
like we often hear?
You're going to love this. Adler had a very different take.
Okay.
He actually saw dreams as rehearsals for future actions.
Oh, wow.
So they reflect our goals, our anxieties, our preparations for what lies ahead.
So they're not just these random images floating around in our heads.
Not random at all.
Okay.
They offer clues about our inner world, our deepest desires, and, like we said, even those hidden anxieties.
It's like that story of the Greek poet Simonides.
Yes.
You familiar with him?
I am, yeah.
So this guy had an intense fear of sea voyages.
Okay.
And he was invited to sail to Asia Minor, but he kept putting it off, even though, like, the ship was ready to go.
Okay.
And then one night, he dreamt that this man he once found dead appeared before him, warning him not to go on the voyage.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Simonides took it as like a divine sign
Right.
and refused to board the ship.
Wow. Talk about a dream having an impact, right?
Talk about a dream having an impact.
That's intense.
So how does this tie back into what we were just talking about?
Yeah, so it ties in perfectly.
Okay.
Because Adler wouldn't have seen this as some message from the grave, right?
Right.
But rather a reflection of Simonides' own anxieties,
Oh,
manifesting in his dream.
so it's his fear almost like giving him permission.
Exactly. His subconscious, in a way, is offering him an out.
To not face the fear.
To not face his fear of the sea.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, it's almost like our dreams can be a way of confirming our choices,
Yes.
even if they're not always the most courageous ones.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
It highlights how understanding our dreams can be really powerful. Because just like understanding our style of life can empower us to make changes, so too can decoding these nighttime narratives.
Okay, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see my dreams in a whole new light. We've covered so much ground already, from style of life, the power of our past, even this really intriguing world of dreams.
Right.
But I know there's one more piece of adverse thinking that's really crucial to unlocking our potential,
Yeah.
and that's social interest.
Yes, social interest.
What is that all about?
So Adler, he believed that social interest wasn't just this feel-good concept. It's actually the ultimate measure of mental health
Oh, wow.
and the key to true fulfillment.
So you're saying, like, in order to unlock my full potential, I need to be a social butterfly.
Not necessarily a social butterfly.
Okay.
It's much deeper than that. It's about cultivating genuine empathy, feeling connected to others, and contributing to something larger than ourselves.
So it's not just about, like, being agreeable or, like, going to every single party.
No, not at all.
It's about something deeper, like a sense of purpose, maybe.
Exactly. A sense of purpose and contribution. It's about aligning our lives with something meaningful, something bigger than just our own individual pursuits. Imagine feeling a sense of belonging, knowing that your actions, big or small, make a positive difference in the world.
It's like that feeling of, like, I'm a part of something bigger than myself.
Exactly.
So it's not about being agreeable
No.
or going to every party.
Right.
It's about that deeper sense
Yes.
of purpose,
Yes.
of contributing to something meaningful.
Precisely. Adler, he really believed that when we tap into this social interest, we unlock this level of fulfillment that, it goes way beyond achieving personal goals.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because we often hear that saying, right? Like, it's better to give than to receive. Does
Yes.
that tie into this at all?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness. When we shift our focus from what's in it for me
Right,
to how can I contribute,
right.
something really powerful happens.
So we start living on what Adler called the useful side of life.
Precisely. He believed that each of us faces this fundamental choice.
Okay.
We can live on the useful side where our actions align with this social interest. They contribute to the greater good.
And the flip side of that, then, is the useless side, which sounds a bit ominous, if you ask me.
It does, but it's not about being lazy or unproductive.
Good.
It's about living in this self-absorbed way that's primarily focused on personal gain,
Okay.
maybe even revenge.
Oh, wow.
You're operating from fear, insecurity, rather than connection and contribution.
So you could be wildly successful,
Absolutely.
famous even,
Totally.
but still be living on that useless side,
Yeah, you could be
if it's all driven by ego.
ego. Yeah, exactly. A lack of concern for others.
Lack of concern for others.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, like, checking those boxes off the list.
No, not at all. True fulfillment, it doesn't come from external achievements alone. It comes from aligning your life with a sense of purpose that goes beyond your own self-interest.
I like that. How do we know, though, if we're truly on the useful side?
That's a good question.
Are there, like, telltale signs?
Yeah, I think so. So think about your relationships.
Okay.
Are they based on genuine connection,
Okay.
mutual respect? Do you contribute to your community, even in small ways? Do you face challenges with courage and responsibility?
It's like a little checklist.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all good indicators that you're on that useful path.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this all kind of ties back into our style of life, right?
Yes.
Those ingrained patterns that, like, we develop early on. So say someone listening is like, oh, shoot, my style's not really serving me right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I've been leaning towards that useless side a little bit too much. Can they actually, like, shift gears?
Absolutely. And that's one of the most empowering aspects of Adler's work. We have the power to choose a different path. It's not about erasing our past, but understanding how it's shaped us
Right.
and then making a conscious choice to rewrite those old scripts.
Okay, so then how do we actually do that? Where do we even begin this style of life makeover?
So it all starts with awareness.
Okay.
Reflect on your patterns. How do you typically approach challenges, relationships, your own goals? And remember those early memories we discussed. Those can offer valuable clues.
So I need to, like, dust off my old photo albums,
Maybe.
call my siblings, rehash some childhood dynamics.
Exactly. You're connecting the dots between those past experiences and your present-day patterns.
Right.
Once you see the connections, you can start to make more conscious choices.
It's like becoming, like, the architect of our own lives.
Yes.
Choosing to remodel those rooms that aren't really working anymore.
Exactly.
Are there any specific, like, tools almost that Adler offered to, like, help with this renovation project?
Totally. One of the most powerful ones, I think, is encouragement.
Encouragement. Okay, that just sounds a little too simple.
It does, but don't underestimate its power. Adler really believed that encouragement is essential for growth and resilience.
So it's a little more than just, like, good job.
A little more than good job, it's about seeing the potential in ourselves and others,
Okay.
believing in our abilities, creating an environment where it's safe to take risks,
Right.
and learn from mistakes.
Well, it's about fostering, like, confidence and self-worth, too.
Exactly.
And it starts with self-encouragement.
It does. When we encourage ourselves, we're more likely to step outside of our comfort zones, embrace those challenges.
Right. Like we were saying before, it all starts with us.
It does.
But I imagine surrounding yourself with encouraging people
Yeah.
is pretty essential, too.
Totally. The people that we choose to spend our time with, that has a huge impact.
Right.
Choose to cultivate relationships with those who inspire you, who support you, who encourage your growth.
Easier said than done sometimes, though.
It is.
It's a good reminder to, like, really take stock of those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure that they're life-giving, not draining.
Totally. And speaking of life-giving, another tool that Adler emphasized is the power of focusing on the present moment.
Okay, so ditching those woulda, coulda, shouldas,
Yes.
what-if spirals that keep us up all night.
Exactly. Adler believed that dwelling on the past or worrying about the future just steals our joy,
Mm-hmm.
keeps us stuck.
It's like that saying, right?
Yeah.
Worrying is like paying interest on a debt you may never owe.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. It perfectly captures, I think, the futility of worry.
Right.
By focusing on what we can control right now, in this moment, we free ourselves from that burden.
Right. That's the thing. It's like easier said than done, though.
It is.
Right? Like, how do you just snap out of it and be present, especially when, like, you're feeling anxious or, like, those negative thoughts are just creeping in?
It takes practice, and that's where mindfulness techniques, things like meditation, even just deep breathing can be so helpful. Even taking a few conscious breaths, that can really shift our perspective.
So we're learning to kind of, like, observe those thoughts and emotions, but without judgment.
Exactly.
And then we can gently guide our attention back to the present moment.
Exactly.
Which, like, I feel like that would be a game changer if you can actually, like, master that.
It is. It
Okay.
is. And here's another tool for you, for your style of life makeover kit.
Okay, I love it.
Reframing your perspective.
Okay, so this is like finding a new Instagram filter for our thoughts.
More like swapping out a distorted lens for a clearer one.
Okay.
Because Adler really believed that we often create our own suffering
Oh,
by clinging to negative or limiting beliefs about ourselves and the world.
so those inner critics
Yes.
that are like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not worthy enough.
Yes, exactly. But here's the good news. We have the power to challenge those beliefs and choose a more empowering perspective.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? How do we silence those critics for good?
It starts with awareness. So notice those negative thoughts and ask yourself, is this really true? Is there another way to see this situation?
So we can kind of like rewire those deeply ingrained thought patterns.
Yes.
Almost like hitting the undo button
Yes, exactly.
on a not so helpful belief.
You got it. It's about recognizing that our thoughts aren't always objective truth. You know?
Right.
It's about taking those negative beliefs to court almost,
Okay.
asking for the evidence.
I like that. Like, hold on, inner critic. Do you have receipts for this?
Exactly.
If I don't think you do.
Oh my gosh, this has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I'm walking away with like a whole new understanding
Good.
of myself, of my potential.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. That's what Adler's individual psychology, that's what it offers. It's that framework for understanding those motivations,
Yeah.
those often hidden patterns. And then what do we do? How do we create a more fulfilling life?
And it all comes back to that beautiful idea of social interest,
It does.
which I love that because it's that reminder, right, that we're not just in this for ourselves.
That's right.
That true fulfillment comes from connecting with something larger than ourselves, contributing to the world around us.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we thrive in connection. And so when we focus on contribution, making a positive impact, even in those small ways,
Right.
it ripples outward.
It's like we each have this incredible power, then,
Yeah.
to make the world a little bit brighter,
Yes.
a little bit kinder.
Yes.
And it's just like a good reminder, too, that our actions, no matter how small, they really do matter.
Absolutely. They do. And that sense of purpose,
Yeah.
that comes from knowing that you're on the useful side of life. That's what Adler believed was the key
It's a lasting fulfillment.
to lasting fulfillment.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this incredible deep dive here, what's like the one thing you hope our listeners take away from Adler's work?
Remember this. You have the power to choose.
Okay.
You are not defined by your past.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to rewrite those old scripts, to step into a more fulfilling and meaningful way of living.
That's such an empowering message, right? Like we get to choose courage over fear.
Yes.
Connection over isolation.
Yes.
Contribution over like just being completely self-absorbed.
Yes.
What an incredible gift to give ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Be kind to yourself.
Right.
Celebrate those small victories.
Yeah.
And never, ever underestimate your capacity for growth.
I love that. So on that note, until next time, keep those minds curious, those hearts open, and those potential meters soaring high.